Welcome to NARAL's The Morning After. Each Thursday, our podcast brings you the latest on reproductive health care, progressive politics, and the fight to keep abortion safe and legal. NARAL's The Morning After is a production of NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ProChoiceOH. Enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Gabe.
I'm Vashitta. And I'm Elaina.
You're new.
Yeah, Elaina. That I am. Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Elaina Ramsey with the Ohio Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm so honored to be a part of the NARAL team. Doing this great collaborative partnership where I get to hang out in the office and work on behalf of Ohio RCRC.
Yes.
And provide a little bit of that religious troublemaking spirit.
Well, thank you. We're glad to have you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So this is a new partnership. I mean, Ohio RCRC has existed for I don't know how many years. We've been working with the organization since I started working in the pro-choice movement. You know, either of us through previous executive directors, but the woman who you're replacing, Laura Young, Reverend Young.
Oh yes.
Moved off to a position with the church. So they were looking to replace the position your board was. And our boss, Kelly Copeland, really values the work that Ohio RCRC has done over the years, the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. You know, Kelly's very active with the church. And so she said, hey, you know, if we can have our two organizations work in closer proximity, then this will be a good partnership. So you were hired on. So what are you hoping to do just in general with the organization?
Oh yeah, I'm just so delighted to be back in my home state and help to mobilize people. There's a lot of great work that's been happening, and so I definitely want to build off of that. But it's really exciting times for RCRC as a national movement and what we're doing on the ground as well. We're very much a pro-faith, pro-family, pro-choice organization that is different in that we really stand with women, recognizing their moral capacity to make the best decisions about their lives, their futures, and their bodies. And so we really bring that moral framework into the conversation. So we'll be doing a lot of creative education and advocacy and just incredible partnerships because we can't do this work alone. And so that's why I was really excited to move back home from DC to be a part of what's happening here.
Right. Do you want to give people a little just brief history of your work that you were doing in Virginia, just kind of the top line to give them a sense of the flavor that you're working on?
Yeah, well, so I have been working in the gender justice movement space for over 10 years now, and really focused a lot on ending sexual and gender-based violence, rape and domestic violence, particularly among people of faith, and recognizing that that's just something that the church does not talk about. So I was working mainly with Protestants and evangelicals on that. But then was recognizing that there was so much pushback about talking about another form of violence that women endure, and that is access and their rights to reproductive health care, including their right to an abortion. And that is still a topic that, many churches are barely now just starting to talk about rape and domestic abuse. They're certainly not ready to tackle abortion, at least in the more conservative spaces, which I work in.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Over the years, as we've presented bills, we've either had whoever was the RCRC executive director at the time testifying, or normally they would speak to, the clergy community and say, hey, who wants to come down to the State House? And it's the weirdest thing because you get a reverend or a rabbi up at that podium to testify before committee. And sometimes you can just see the wheels turning in the committee member's head, because they've gone to church their entire lives. They've got this idea of how a religious institution should address reproductive health care. And then all of a sudden it's normally the rabbi where they'll step up. And I mean, it's like they're looking at an alien from space and they're just trying to figure out what this thing is in front of them.
Uh-huh.
It really just confuses the hell out of some of these state legislators. So, it's an incredibly valuable perspective that we don't get enough of. And I say that as, big ol' atheist. But there's a ton of value there in having clergy come to the events, be a part of the conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is your first week on the job?
Yeah, it's been a banner week. First podcast ever. And of course, an incredible action that NARAL and so many other great partners, especially NARAL, helped lead yesterday, and I got to be a part of. It's been an exciting first week for sure.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You want to describe what happened?
Oh, me? Okay, sorry. I didn't know I was on
doing all
point.
talking. Go for it.
So what Elaina is referring to is the Handmaids protest that took place yesterday at the State House, and it was absolutely amazing. It had so much coverage. I am still in awe and surprised, but nevertheless, I think we're all proud of the statement that we took. So for those who aren't really familiar with The Handmaid's Tale, it's a novel made into also a movie from by Margaret Atwood, and it basically just talks about subjugation of women, and how they took matters into their own hands to gain their independence. And a lot of that subjugation was geared towards reproductive rights for women. They were kind of made just like to be, as the old saying goes, barefoot and pregnant.
Right.
So they were used just to obviously just, procreate. And so yesterday, going into the State House, into the committee hearing to protest Senate Bill 145, it was just, it was amazing. They were silent. The handmaids were silent. And I definitely think it took everyone by surprise, especially the committee members.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was awesome. We live streamed it. That was my first time live streaming something. And it was funny just to sit there and watch. Like, I've seen people periscopes before, but like I've never done it on my own. So I enjoyed that.
Right.
But yeah, it was a good time. So
you get to see all the comments from people as it's
that was the best part.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Handmaid's Tale, it's on Hulu, which I don't have, so I haven't actually seen the show. But I have the novel. And so just to describe, we had 16 women who were involved in the protest.
Yes.
And Elaina, can we out you?
Oh, yes, please. So proud to have done that.
We didn't know that you'd be interested. And so the discussion was happening amongst our staff, and you were just like, well, can I be
yes, please.
It's like you don't have to, yes, we don't even have to ask. Just say I'm in.
Yeah. Each of them had floor-length red robes as they wear on the show, and white bonnets.
Yes.
And that very distinct, stark visual, to see 16 women, in two rows,
front rows,
silently walking through the State House, and then occupying the front row of this committee room.
Absolutely.
Was incredibly powerful, even to people who weren't familiar with the show.
Exactly.
The double takes as soon as somebody walks in the room and see this, it
That's
almost
not your
like
common day at the State House. No.
Right. It's not. I thought you guys were going to get kicked out.
Mm-hmm. As did I.
What was it like sitting in that front row in costume?
I was absolutely grateful that, we were allowed to stay and be present. But then as I sat there, I was just taken aback by how even then the handmaids in real life were not recognized. No one in the committee, had anything to say about what was happening in the room. They just kept on talking about women and what women need without engaging, what was even happening in the room.
Yeah,
and it was mostly men talking about what they think are best for women.
Right. Yeah.
So it was definitely jarring and surreal and chilling, and just, I love that creative protest and how it can bring out, all these questions and bring it to life. But it was also just so powerful and real for me, as a rape survivor, to have, to sit and be silenced and be put in a state of submission. And it just reminded me again why it's so important, the work that we do, because consent and choice is just so central to who we are as created beings. And to be in a space where proponents for that bill could not even recognize women's own sovereignty and authority over their own lives was really just disappointing.
To say the least.
This wasn't the first time that we've seen people using this the book or specifically the TV show, because the TV show has really made these costumes become like instantly identifiable. In Texas, our sister organization NARAL Pro-Choice Texas and their coalition down there has used The Handmaid's Tale as a form of protest in the Texas State House this year. And that was instantly an incredibly powerful thing and got the attention of the reproductive rights community all across the country. Also, after that, there was a Saturday Night Live sketch, which is, it's of course hilarious.
Yes.
No, it's great. And I think it's on YouTube, so we'll put it in the comments if you're reading our blog.
Yes.
So the gist of the SNL sketch is, the women approach, and they're all silent, and they're trying not to be seen by the men. And then all of a sudden, a couple of guys walk up, and they're like, "Hey, I didn't see you at the party last week." And the women are like, "You're not supposed to be speaking to me. This is forbidden." He's like, "What are you talking about?" And the guys in the sketch, I mean, this is the point of the sketch, they don't even understand that anything has changed with the women. And I don't think they even really occurred to them. You're all dressed kind of funny. The guys are just leading their lives and just completely ignorant that changes have taken place that have affected women's lives.
Right.
And so that's SNL's, parody of the situation. Right. That was exactly what played out in that committee room.
Yeah.
I expected you guys to get kicked out. I stepped out in the hallway because we weren't allowed to run our Facebook Live during committee. So I stood out there, interviewed Vashitta and Ashley, one of our other staffers from Cleveland. And then after we stopped rolling the video, because there wasn't any action in the hallway, I talked to some of the highway patrol and I said, I thought you guys were going to kick them out. I mean, I'm not asking you to,
right? But just interested in knowing.
Yeah, and they were like, "What? It's just this is very easy to ignore these people. They're just sitting silently in the front row." And the bill sponsor, Huffman, Steve Wilson, these two senators, they stepped up and they testified, and just ignored you. They're ignoring 16 people dressed in these incredible costumes. And just had no problem speaking right over you, even though you were performing a form of protest against them.
It speaks volumes.
It does.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. It got terrific press coverage. And, I noticed that some of the women members of the State House Press Corps were some of the first to show up, in preparation for the hearing. Jackie Borchard with Cleveland Plain Dealer, Joe Ingalls from Ohio Public Radio were two of the first ones on the scene to make sure that this got coverage. I think we've seen several times now, this is no exception, where the women in the press corps really are, very important in providing coverage to this.
Absolutely.
How do you think the coverage went?
I think the coverage went well. Up until, like you said, when we weren't allowed to kind of live stream anymore, it was, covered from the time that they walked up the steps, came through the hallway, and went into the committee room and sat there silently as some of the senators were coming in and, getting ready to sit down and getting ready for the, hearing, in preparation for the hearing. So I think the coverage went well. I think that even though it was ignored by the senators, Huffman and Wilson, I feel like, it still it still had a broader statement of what we were trying to say. And as much as they ignored it physically, I know emotionally and mentally, they still had to, acknowledge what was going on. So
let me read from the press release. This is a quote from Jamie, who's traveling for work today, otherwise she'd be here. She said, "In The Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood said, 'Whatever is silenced will clamor to be heard, though silently.'" It's a quote from the show. Today's handmade protesters are here to show the members of the Ohio legislature that women are done being silently restricted in what they may choose for their own health care. She said, let's call Senate Bill 145 what it is, part of a broader effort to end access to safe, legal abortion in Ohio. The General Assembly has already passed 18 restrictions that have been signed into law. These restrictions disproportionately impact low-income women and women of color. Our laws already create a system in which some women have the ability to exercise their rights to abortion care and some do not. What do you think about that?
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful, but sad. I think a lot of people don't recognize the severity of these abortion laws. And, it, like she said, it impacts women of color and low income women. And they don't realize that until it's too late. So.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, access is everything. And so we're essentially forcing women to move out of state or make other alternative choices that are not as safe. And again, what was striking about that testimony is that there was so much disregard for what the medical community has said, that this is a safe, common procedure, and that's completely disregarded.
Yeah.
Right. So this was a sponsored testimony for the bill. We'll potentially next week hear from proponents of the bill. This is going to be the anti-abortion groups that have been pushing this. In committee yesterday, Senator Huffman, he was asked, who in the medical community did you talk to prepare this legislation? Did you talk to the Ohio State Medical Association? What doctors?
Right.
And he straight up said, well, it was Ohio Right to Life that we talked to. So this is yet another piece of legislation that's written by anti-abortion, groups, written by lobbyists, and just handed off to legislators to take. That there isn't input from true medical professionals in crafting these pieces of legislation.
That and no conversation with actual women who've had abortions and to understand the complex personal choice that is, that I was able to meet with some patients and who have now become advocates for abortion, and to hear their stories and understand that some of them are mothers and they decided that that was not the best choice for their family at the time, and then to then also be a part of the protest with another pregnant woman who recognizes that she wants to live in a world where everyone has a freedom to decide what to do with their bodies, because we're not far off from Margaret Atwood's dystopian world if we're saying that women are just to be vessels to procreate, and we're going to force them to carry out a pregnancy. That's just unconscionable.
Unhealthy or just anything. It could be the case, I don't know. I don't think you were in there, but Senator Elaina gave this, what they called a chilling testimony yesterday, and or when she was kind of talking to Wilson and Huffman, and it was just like, I just kind of shake my head, because sometimes I feel like as women we should all get it, like, no matter what your male counterparts are doing, you should understand as a woman that right should not be taken away. So
yeah, Peggy Lehner made that comment. She unfortunately is Senator Lehner and the former head of Ohio Right to Life.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All makes sense now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we have Senator Lehner, who has held that role over in the House. We now have Representative Keller, who's currently the I'm not sure her title, but director of a crisis pregnancy center.
Yeah.
So she comes with all of that anti-abortion language. And she's been trying to get different bills moving. We have a couple pieces of legislation currently active in the legislature. In addition to Senate Bill 145, there's House Bill 149, which restricts fetal tissue research, which is already not happening in the state of Ohio.
Absolutely.
And I think we've talked about this on a previous episode. They're trying to take something that's either not happening or already illegal and make it double illegal. These are the sort of just nonsensical proposals that they're pitching out there. It doesn't
Yeah.
help anybody. It
Not at
creates an
all.
undue burden on women.
Yeah.
And these are their priorities.
And there's so much more going on in this community and in this state that should take precedence over what you guys are doing right now. And it doesn't make any sense to me why this has to be something that's that important when we're dealing with the opiate crisis and other things that just, it's obviously more important.
Right. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep an eye on House Bill 149. In other news, we saw in other bad news, a return of what they're calling the Down syndrome abortion ban that was introduced yesterday as well. That's Senate Bill 214. So that bill restricts the ability of women to terminate a pregnancy after receiving a positive prenatal diagnosis for Down syndrome. So that bill is back for its second legislative session. The first time it was up, the very first words out of the sponsor's mouth when she was testifying in support of that was, "Not every family is equipped to raise a child with Down syndrome." Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it doesn't make any type of sense at all. So once again, like you said, nonsensical. Like, it doesn't make any sense that we can take something that some people have no idea what it takes to deal with and make a decision, on behalf of those families who do have that common, situation going on in their family. So,
right.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to work on that. The state budget is continuing to move. Of course, the budget has to be signed into law by June 30th of this year. The newest version of the bill has put back some of the money for crisis pregnancy centers. The previous budget from 2 years ago gave them $1 million. The first version of this year's budget didn't give crisis pregnancy centers any money. Yesterday's or Monday's version gives them now $100,000. So if this passes in its current form, it would be a 90% reduction in what they're giving to CPCs. That's still too much.
Absolutely.
Because these organizations don't provide any benefit.
Right.
They hand out diapers, but as Kelly Copeland says, it's the least efficient method of
Exactly.
distributing diapers to low-income women.
But giving them wrong information or using scare tactics and things like that is obviously something that we do not recommend, any organization does. So.
Right. So we'll keep an eye on that and we'll keep you posted. So should we talk about our upcoming events?
Let's get it on.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So, we're still obviously in the middle of Pride season, and this week actually is Columbus Pride. So we all know that Columbus Pride is probably the biggest Pride here in Ohio, and they have seen large crowds. So, we're expecting, I don't know, maybe over 100,000 people, maybe. I know last year or year before that, it was around maybe more than that. But
right.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to be there Friday 4 to 11, but we'll probably be there maybe 4 to 8, 9-ish. And then Saturday 11 till about 8, 9-ish. So.
Okay. So people, we'll put the link in the show notes. People can still register to volunteer.
Come out, volunteer with us. We're having volunteers come in 2-hour increment shifts. So if you can come volunteer, even if you want to do an hour, we definitely would be grateful for any type of time that anyone can give.
Right. Last year, remember, it was immediately following the Orlando shooting. And so that, I think,
that
really
could have
contributed.
been an increase in crowds.
Yeah, it was a record crowd then.
Yeah.
So then obviously we're past the 1-year anniversary of that. And I think that's, still something fresh in people's mind.
I agree.
Gives them, a real reason, plus,
Exactly. And a lot of people are
the Trump
there
administration and all of their crap.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. Yeah. It's never a dull moment, right?
Right. So that's this weekend. Next week, June 19th, is Policy and Pride in Ohio at Preterm up in Cleveland. So they've got a policy event if you're looking for some nerdy information. And then the weekend after that is our big Weekend O festivals. That's basically something everywhere.
Yeah.
June 24th.
Absolutely. I think I've kind of checked out, so I don't exactly remember what June 24th is. I want to say Cleveland and Cincinnati. Am I right?
Yep.
Okay.
And Comfest.
And
Comfest.
Comfest, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, we'll be active everywhere. You're going to be exhausted by that point in time.
I don't even want to think about it. I don't. I think by that time though, we will have organizer here. So yeah, that will be such a help. And I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed.
Nice. Something to flag for people going to Comfest. Women Have Options Ohio, our friends who helped make the bonnets for the protest. They've got a workshop during Comfest called Busting Abortion Stigma. That's on Saturday at Comfest, 12:35. I'm not sure what stage is on. It's on the solar stage. So there's several stages at Comfest. If you get the program, you'll be able to find it. So check out Women Have Options to see their event, and that'll round out our events for June. So,
wow, exciting time. Okay,
exciting but tiring, but yes, exciting nonetheless. So,
okay. So that about does it. Elaina, how did you like your first podcast experience?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, just shoot the breeze. And,
exactly.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Cool. Okay. Well, we'll have you back frequently since you're, working in the next room.
Exactly.
And I guess we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.